This video covers Lesson 1-9 for Secondary 1 Math, solving inequalities and interval notation. Okay, so remember to read the directions. Here we're going to be solving the inequality. We're going to write our answers in set notation. That's what's underlined up here. And then we're going to be graphing our solutions on the number line. Remember, there's no decimals. We're going to always simplify our fractions and no mixed numbers. So we're going to go ahead and draw our line down from our inequality sign. And the first step here is we got this 2/5 that needs to be distributed into the parentheses. So 2/5 times 10 n's gives us 20 n's over 5. And then we have minus, so then we got 2/5 times 35. 2 times 35 is 70. And so we have 70 divided by 5. And this is still going to be less than or equal to 12 n's because we haven't multiplied both sides by a negative number or divided by a negative number on both sides of our inequality. Next, let's simplify this. 20 n's divided by 5 would give us 4 n's. Minus 70 divided by 5. Well, 50 divided by 5 is 10. And then we have 4 more, so 14. So minus 14 is less than or equal to 12 n's. Now we want to get our n's to the same side of the inequality. So we're going to subtract 4 n's from both sides of our inequality. So now there's no n's left on the left side of our inequality. We have negative 14 is less than or equal to 8 n's. Next, we're going to do the opposite of 8 times n. So we're going to divide by 8 on both sides of our inequality. Notice we're dividing by a positive number, so we're going to keep our inequality sign. So n is greater than or equal to negative 14 divided by 8. Well, let's go ahead and simplify this before we write it. Negative 14 is negative 2 times 7, or negative 7 times 2. The negative can go in either spot. And then we have 2 times 2 times 2 for 8. The 2's can simplify. We get a negative 1. And so negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. And over 2 times 2, which is 4. So negative 7/4. Now let's write this in set notation. The set n such that n is greater than or equal to negative 7/4. Remember, we always put n first in the set notation. So the inequality sign was open to n down here at the bottom, so it's open to n in our set notation. Okay, graphing. We have negative 7/4. And then next up, what we have negative 1. And to the left, we'll have negative 2. Now we're going to have a closed circle because it's an or equal to. And our arrow is going to go right to infinity. Number 2. Again, let's go ahead and draw our line down from our inequality sign. And it looks like we got distributive property again. We have this negative 5 next to the parenthesis with things in it. So negative 5 times 2 v's is negative 10 v's. And negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. And then we have plus 7 v's. Our inequality sign didn't change because we didn't multiply or divide by a negative to both sides of our inequality. So now we're going to combine our like terms. This would be a negative 10 v's and the positive 7 v's. So if we combine those, negative 10 v's plus 7 v's gives us a negative 3 v's, or negative 3 times v, plus 10, which we just bring down, is greater than or equal to negative 2. Alright, now we're going to do the opposite of what's happening to our variable, the v, and we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. So we get negative 3 v's is greater than or equal to negative 12. And now we're going to divide, because we have negative 3 times v, by negative 3. So we get v, and on the left we get 4. Our inequality sign changes this time. It's going to flip because we divided by a negative 3. It's a negative number, so v is less than or equal to positive 4. All right, putting it in set notation, we have the set v such that v is less than or equal to 4. Right, to graph it, 4 is in the middle, 5 to the right, 3 to the left, and it's a greater than or less than or equal to, so we're filling in that circle at 4, and the arrow goes left to negative infinity. Alright, number 3, negative 1/4 times b minus 12. So we're going to be distributing again here, and then we have a plus 7, and on the other side of our inequality we have 2. So let's go ahead and distribute. Negative 1/4 times b is negative 1/4 b. And negative 1/4 times 12. Okay, so what's a fourth of 12? Well, that's 3. Negative times negative is positive, so positive 3 plus 7 is greater than 2. Next, we're going to combine our like terms. In this one, notice there's no other terms with b, so our like terms are actually the 3 and the 7. So we add those together, and we get negative 1/4 b plus 10 is greater than 2. And now we're going to do the opposite of what's happening to our variable to get the variable isolated so we can find out what values work or what the solution is. So we'll subtract 10 from both sides of our inequality sign, and we'll get negative 1/4 b is greater than negative 8. And then we have this 1/4. So we're multiplying negative 1/4 to b, so we can multiply by negative 4/1, the reciprocal. And we'll multiply both sides by negative 4/1, or just negative 4, because negative 4 divided by 1 is negative 4. So on the left we get b. On the right, negative 8 times negative 4 is 32. And our inequality sign is going to flip because we multiplied by a negative. So b is less than 32. In set notation, this would be the set b such that b is less than 32. And graphing it, 32 is our number in the middle in our number line. To the right we got 33. To the left is 31. And we're going to have an open circle at 32. And the arrow is going to point left to negative infinity because we're less than 32. We can also consider that 31 would make our inequality true. 31 is less than 32. Whereas if we were to put the arrow to the right, 33 is not less than 32, so it would be a false statement. So the arrow has to go to the left. Number 4, negative r is less than negative 5r's plus 4r's. So here we're going to draw our line down from the inequality, and we're going to combine like terms. Negative 5r's plus 4r's is negative 1r, or negative r. And we have negative r is less than negative r. So let's go ahead and let's get the r's on the same side. So I'm going to add 1r to both sides of our inequality. So this is 0, this is also 0. So we have 0 is less than 0. Well, is 0 less than 0? No, they're equal. So this is false. It's impossible to have this situation where 0 is less than 0. And so we have a no solution. And in set notation, that's just the empty braces. And our graph, well, we don't really graph because it's nothing on the graph. So there's number 4. Number 5, now we're going to change this slightly. So make note of this in the directions. We're actually going to be writing in interval notation now instead of set notation. But we're still solving these inequalities. So I'm going to draw our line down. Now let's go ahead and look at each expression, or each side of our inequality. We have 6 minus 2, parenthesis 5n plus 5. And on the right, we have 12 minus 10n's. So on the left, I notice we can do distributive properties. So we're going to distribute this negative 2, or minus 2. So negative 2 times 5n's is negative 10n's. We can go ahead and bring down that 6 out in front. Then negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Didn't change our inequality sign. On the right, we still have 12 minus 10n's. Next, let's combine like terms if we have any. On the left, we do. We have a positive 6 and a minus 10. So let's combine those, and we get negative 10n's minus 4. On the right, we still have 12 minus 10n's. Now to solve for n, we're going to get n's to the same side, so we're going to add 10n to both sides of our inequality. And that will simplify out our n's. Negative 10n's plus 10n's is 0 n's, so we're just left with 12. Next, we have negative 10n's plus 10n's, and that's also 0, so we're left with negative 4. So we see that negative 4 is less than or equal to 12. Well, is this a true statement? Or we can ask, is negative 4 less than or equal to 12? Well, we know that it is not equal to, but it is less than. So this is a true statement. Alright, and since we have a true statement, that means that any number I put in, I'm going to get a true statement, so our solution is all real numbers. Now, to write this in interval notation, remember we got to think about our variable. It was n. So n is an element from negative infinity to infinity. To graph it, well, we're just going to put some marker on our number line to give us some perspective, but we're really drawing a line that goes on in both directions because it covers all real numbers. Number 6, negative 4 thirds times 3m plus 6 is greater than negative 4m's minus 8. Draw our line down from our inequality. Now we're going to distribute this negative 4 thirds into the parentheses, so negative 4 thirds times 3m's. Now the really nice thing that we can notice here is that our fraction that we're distributing in has a denominator of 3, and 3m's has a 3. So this is like a 3 in the numerator, so that can simplify. We're going to get negative 4m's. Likewise, this 3 and this 6 can simplify, and that gives us a 2 instead of a 6. So negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. So that's greater than negative 4m's minus 8. Okay, next up, what we're going to do is we're going to get our m's to the same side, so we're going to add 4m's to both sides of our inequality. And that simplifies out all of our m's. So we have no m's left, but we do have negative 8 is greater than negative 8. That is a false statement because negative 8 is not less than or greater than negative 8, but it is equal to. So this is false, which means we have no solution. That's our answer here, no solution. Now, we do have to put that into interval notation. So in interval notation, we have the circle with the line through it. Now to graph it, well, we don't graph it because there's no solution. There's nothing to be graphed. Okay, number 7, 4 minus x divided by 5 is less than or equal to negative 3. So here our 4 minus x is all being divided by 5. So to solve this inequality, we're going to have to multiply by what we're dividing by, which is 5. So 5, I'm going to put it over 1 since we're dealing with a fraction. Or on the right, we're not, so I'm going to multiply by the 5, because 5 divided by 1 is 5. So now we can simplify 5 divided by 5 is 1, so 1 times 4 minus x is just 4 minus x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Our inequality sign stays the same, since we multiplied by a positive number. And now let's go ahead and finish solving for x. So we're going to subtract 4, since we have a positive 4 on the left side of our inequality. So we get negative x is less than or equal to negative 19. We're not solving for a negative x, we want to get x, and so we think of this as negative 1 times x. So that helps us see what we're going to do in this work. We're actually going to divide by negative 1. Or we could multiply by negative 1 to both sides of our inequality, which simplifies this now to x. On the left, we get 19, because a negative divided by a negative is positive. But because we divided by a negative 1, or you multiplied by a negative 1, we have to flip our inequality sign, so x is greater than or equal to 19. Writing this in interval notation, we say that x is an element from, notice it's open to x, so we're going to start with 19, and it goes to infinity. Now this first parenthesis shouldn't be a parenthesis, it should actually be a bracket, because we have a greater than or equal to 19. Alright, to graph it, we have 19 in the middle, we're going 20 to the right, and 18 to the left. We're going to have a closed circle at 19. Arrow's going to the right to infinity. Okay, number 8. Negative 3m minus 7 is less than 2m plus 5. So we're going to go ahead and draw our line down from our inequality sign. And we're going to get our m's, since there's no like terms, we don't have distributive property, we're going to get all the m's to one side of our inequality. So I'm going to add 3 m's to both sides of our inequality, and that will make it so we only have m's on the right side. So we have negative 7 is less than 5m's plus 5. Next, we're going to do the opposite of whatever's happening to m. So we're going to subtract 5 first from both sides of the inequality sign, and that gives us negative 13 is less than 5m's. And then we're going to divide, since we have 5 times m, we divide by 5, and we have negative 13 fifths is less than m. Notice we didn't switch the inequality sign because we divided by a positive number. So in interval notation, we're going to write this as m is an element from, and here we're going to use a parenthesis because there's no or equal to part here, negative 13 fifths to infinity. Graphing it, we got negative 13 fifths. And then to the right, let's think about what this number could be. Let's see, 5, 10, so there's 2. So maybe negative 2 here, and negative 3 to the left. So then we're going to have an open circle, and an arrow going to the right on to infinity. This concludes the Part 1 video of Lesson 1-9 for Secondary 1 Math, solving inequalities and interval notation.